Yes, let's get started immediately since it's already 4 o'clock. I'm gonna quickly share my screen. Can we access my screen and hear me well? Okay. So we are supposed to work on our inventory project, but I kind of figured some things out. We've not really learned about databases. So let's do something on database now, so that tomorrow we'll dedicate tomorrow to building our inventory. Since our inventory is going to be using a database, let's build a simple application that has a database connected. Is that clear? So we'll start the application now by creating the GUI. Then tomorrow morning, we'll connect it to a database. Then evening will be, with that, you should be able to do the inventory, which I will give as an assignment in the morning. So in the evening now, I will mention the person that got it right. Then all of us will now do it together in the evening of tomorrow. I hope that is clear. So I want to do it this way because I want us to be able to learn everything. I don't want you to miss out on anything. I want you to know how to connect to database and do a work. So for this moment, we are going to be learning an application connected to database, and it's going to be a student management software, a software that you can easily use to take in information about students. So let's get started immediately. So on my Python tutorial folder, I'm going to click the new file. I'm going to simply type in students.py. So that's the file that we are going to be creating, student.py. So in this one, I'm not going to be writing the comments because I'm done explaining the basic things. So I'm going to go straight to writing out the codes immediately without wasting time. So I'm going to do the basic importations, which is the first thing you do whenever you want to write your program. So what do we import? So we can simply say from, just the way we normally do it before. Okay, my system is hanging, but okay, from, tick enter. From tick enter, I want to import something. What do I want to import? I want to import all. From tick enter, import all. So that's the first thing we do. From tick enter, import all. So what else do I need to import? I also want to, from tick enter, I also want to import TTK. And also, I want to import SQLite 3. So SQLite is the database system that we're going to be using. It's a relational database. It's very lightweight. Works very good with Python and Java. I'm going to simply import SQLite 3. You can see it's already showing me that there. So those are the things I'm importing because I'm going to be using all these models to work. So I've imported them. So if you're wondering, the SQLite is the database system that we're going to, it's a relational database management system. So that is what we're going to be using to run this. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to quickly create the class.
Sir, SQLite or SQLite?
SQLite, you can just call it SQLite. Okay, so that's the database management system we're going to be using. So I'm going to quickly clear the class that we're working, and I told us that henceforth that every software we are building, we build it in form of a class so that it will be very robust. So I simply say class student database management system. So it's going to be student DB. It's going to be a student database management system. So student DB. So that is the class, and immediately after the class, the first function we create is the what? The constructor function. That's going to build out our GUI. So how do we do that? We simply say what? Def, then double underscore what? Init. Then we'll put another double underscore. Then inside of our bracket is going to take in which what and what is it going to take in? It's going to take in self as an argument, and it's going to also take the window. Let's try out new things this time around. Let's not be consistent with what we are doing. Window. So let's call this time around. Let's call this one root. So that is what we are doing now. So that is our constructor. So inside our constructor, we can simply create create the root window, and we're gonna call it root dot, just the way we normally do before. Title. Let's give it a title. So which title are we gonna give this? We're gonna call it what? Student database. Student management database. Database system. So that's the software we are building. We are building a student management database system. So it's also good you learn this so that in case if you want to build a student management for a small school, you can quickly do this and build for a small school by your area. So I'm going to say root geometry, like we all know, the size. So what size are we going to give this? What size do we give it? So we are simply going to give it, let's try 300 by 400. So let's give it 300 by 400. So let's try now putting that 10 plus 10 and see whether it's going to work. Which is surely going to do, it's surely going to work. So having created this, what do we do now? I'm going to run this so that we'll see it before we start adding up the widgets. So let me run it. To run it, we all know we simply have to say root is equal to create an object. This root window is an object of the TK. So we'll put the class and create it as an object. So that's why we now have root. Then we are going to create an object of this class student DB. So how do we do that? We can simply call it stored DB. Then we'll call or invoke the class. The class is what? Student DB. That's the name of the class. That's this class here, student DB. So check out my spelling of student. It's not making sense. I have to change it. So which window are we looking at? We are looking at root window. And finally, to get it out running, we simply say what? Root dot what? Main loop. So with this, our application should be up. So I can simply say Control S, then I'll come down here and run it. And to run, I simply say what? Python students.py. That's the name of the file. Okay. So my application is up and running and it's showing. Are you people seeing it on my screen or should I bring it up? Okay, it's not showing. So to bring it up, that was a mistake we did the other time. I'm gonna reshare my screen. Okay. Actually, before I reshare my screen, I'm gonna run it so that it will be running while I share the new screen. So let me reshare my screen now so that you can see it. Class, can you see it now? So this is my application. So I'm gonna close it.
Yes.
Okay.
Sir.
I'll close it and quickly run it again. Yeah, so this is my student management system. You can see that the width is not much, or if you extend the width, you can now see it's written student database management system. So that's what I have. So let's keep adding. Let's start adding widgets now. Now that we can see it work, I'll simply close it and start adding widgets. We all know how we go about this. We've tried it. So this is our student management system. Is gonna have different rows. So let's start by adding up the first row. Let's start by doing what? Adding up the first row. So let's add widgets. That's what we're gonna do now. Let's add up the widget. So let's start with first name label. I want to add in a label that will take the first name. So we'll simply call it fname underscore label. You know, before we are doing LBL1. So I want to show us that we can actually do many things. So we are bringing in the what? We are creating an object of label. So we are getting it from the class of label. That's the widget we are putting. So where do we want it to be in? We want it to be in the root. And what text do we want to be on it? We want it to have a first name. That's what we want to have on it. So having created this object of this level, what do? We need to add it now. We need to add it to the root window. So how do we do that? You know, we were using place before. This time around, we're going to use grid. So I'll simply say fn label, which is the first name label. Fn label dot grid. So you can say dot place or you say dot grid. And I said I'm going to be showing us row, and instead of using, when you say place, dot place, you use the X and Y axis to place. But when you say grid, you use row and column. So we're going to be placing this on row 0, which is the first row. And we're going to also be placing it on column. So help me with the spelling of column. You're going to be placing it on, don't worry. You're going to be placing it on column 0. So let's give it some padding so that it will look fine. So say padding in the X direction. And we're giving it the padding of 10. And we also give it padding in the Y direction. And we are giving a padding of 10 also. And we want this to actually stick in the Y direction to the west. So we want to stick it to in the Y direction to the west. So like I said before, we're going to go into the details of using grid and row. But it's pretty easy to understand. You're going to see that subsequent ones we are putting will be almost the same way. So I'm going to quickly save this and run it now since I've placed it, so that I'll see the impact. So you can see first name. Can you see it? So this is the first name. Can you see my my app running?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You can see it.
So let's continue. So having added the label widget, I'm quickly gonna add in the entry that will hold the entry that will hold the first name. And to do that, I simply say self.entry. But since it's first name entry, I'm gonna say self.fn underscore entry. Okay, so that's gonna be the first name. So I can also put value self.age. So it's going to take in, this entry is going to take in the first name entry value. So this is going to be equal to string var. So what we mean by string var is that anything it picks up, it should put it in, it should be a string var. A string var is actually a type of entry that takes in value. So we simply put it in the root window. And when we put it in the root window, we are going to put in a value of nothing. So we don't put in a value yet to it. So we're trying to code this in a different way from what we've been doing before so that we can actually see various ways we can do things. So I'm going to explain this much later. Okay. So we're also going to say self dot fn entry and this time around, because we imported TTK, so the type of entry that we're using is actually the TTK dot entry, which you can also use instead of using the normal entry. So we're going to be placing this inside root. Then we're going to say text variable equal to self dot fn underscore entry underscore value. Then we'll close it up. Then once we are done with this, we can simply add this to the place it to the root window. So to place, like we already know, simply do self dot, what are we looking at? We are looking at fn entry. So it's already here, so I can simply go and click on it. So fn entry, then I'll simply say dot grid, which is what we are using to bring it in. So which row is it gonna be? It's gonna be, because we are looking at the first row, it's still gonna be on row 0. Which column this time around is gonna be on column 1. And we're gonna give it padding in the X direction. And this padding is gonna be 10. We are consistent with our padding, the magnitude of our padding. And we're also gonna give it padding in the Y direction. And this padding is also gonna be what? 10. Then after padding it, we want to also stick it to the west. So we'll say stick in the stick in the Y direction to be what? West. So I'm gonna do Ctrl S to save. So this widget we are adding, we are actually in the first row. So you can simply say first row. So we are considering the first row for now. So I'll save this so that when I want to put the second row, I can simply copy this and modify. So if I come down now and run this, I should be able to see my first name and my entry. So you see that we are doing this in a different way, but this is actually more standard than what we've been doing before. So we're actually using TTK entry here because you can see here we imported TTK. It's another way of doing the same thing, but doing it in a more elegant way that can easily be worked on. And why are we doing it in this way? Because we want to connect this to a database later. So we want it to be robust so that when we are adding our database, it will not be a problem. So having this now, let's create the second row. So how do we create the second row from what we've been doing before? We'll simply do what? Copy this first row. Then we'll come down in two places, we'll paste it, very simple. Then in place of first, we'll simply change it to what? Second. So that's how we add the second row. So instead of having FBN for the first name, so let this be what? Last name, LN, isn't it? So LN is last name. So in place of first name here, we simply change it to what? Second name. So what else do we change there? Can anybody assist me with what and what we can change? So when we are adding 9, instead of FN, it's going to be what? LN. But since we are in the second row, you see why we are using row now, you can understand where the row come from. It makes the work very, very easy for you. Because we are on the second row, it has to be row what? First row was row 0. So second row will be row what? The second row will be what? Row 1. Thank you. So column will still leave it at what it was. Everything sticky well, so we are not changing anything there. Then when we come to this one, instead of having FN entry, we are supposed to have what? LN entry. The same thing here. So just change all the variable names very simply. Then the row is going to be what? Row 1. So make sure you change this row to row 1. So after changing it to row 1, leave every other thing. See, it makes it easy. How we are doing it now is pretty more easy. So if I do Control S to save this, and I come back here and run, I'm going to see the second row widget added. So quickly make sure you close the former one. So you can see now second name, and you can see it is perfectly done. So if you look at this, my text field now, you see that it's different from the other text field we are using. Did you notice? This one is smarter, and that's because we are using what? TTK. We are using what? TTK. TTK makes it look pretty much interesting. Yeah, you can talk. Yeah, Fortune wants to ask a question.
Sir, I noticed after your text variable, you have equals to self. You are still having FA. After your text variable for your second row.
Yeah. See here.
For the second row.
Okay, for the second row, yeah. Okay, I'm still having very important. Well, if you didn't notice this, now when we connecting to the database, we would have had issue. So thank you for that. Very important. Okay, so let's continue, Abby. So let's put in the third row. Let's put in the what? Third row. So simply copy the second row, come down 2 times, Control V, and we'll call it the what? Third row. So what and what do we bring in for the third row? Third row is going to be our submit button. So let's bring in our submit. It's going to be both submit, update, and other buttons that we're going to be working on. So let's bring in some buttons. And to do that, in place of label, want to bring in a button. So that button we are going to bring in by simply saying self dot. Want a submit button. So we'll simply say self dot submit underscore button. That's what we're bringing in. So which kind of button do we want to use? Do we want to use the normal button, or do we want to use the TTK button that looks finer? So let's use TTK button. So we'll simply say TTK dot button. So where do we want to place the button? Inside the root window, isn't it? And the text there, is it going to be second name or just submit? It's going to be submit, isn't it? So let's have submit as the text. But apart from submitting, it's going to do other functions. So we're supposed to put command so that when you click on it, it will do something. But we're not putting that command yet because we've not created the function for the command. So let's leave that blank. Let's do what? Let's leave that blank. So having done that, let's add it up. So to add it, I simply say what? So what do I do here to add it? Self dot what? Self dot submit underscore button dot grid. That's how you add. So which row is it gonna be now? Row 2. Thank you. So column is still gonna be 1, and padding and everything remain the same. Then I'm gonna add another button known as the update button. So two things. We want to be doing 2 things to every student's data. We want to be able to submit or add, then we're going to be able to update. So I'm going to simply clear this off because I'm not adding extra entry. So copy this very one. If I copy it and come down, I'll paste. So in place of submit, I'm going to replace it with update, because that's what I want this button to be doing. So that if you finish putting somebody's information, you can edit it by clicking update. So in place of submit here, what do we have? Update. So I have updates. So what else do I change? The row is going to be still row 2, but this time around column 1. So do we need to change any other thing? Padding and every other thing still remains the same. So I'm going to just remove this stick. I'm going to just remove only this sticky west, since something is already sticked on the same row. So I'm going to do Control S, and I'm going to run this so that we'll see these 2 buttons. So let's see the 2 buttons. Okay, I'm seeing submit, but I'm not seeing update. So what could be the case? Because in placing, I did not change it to update. So I'm going to quickly do that. Do Control S to save again. Then I come back and run it again. So you can see it submit an update button. You can see our GUI now is looking so pretty, unlike before. It's so mature, so good. Do we understand, or do we make out? Is there any question that we want to look at, or is it very clear? Because I think it's pretty clear. It's not something that should disturb us. So let's look at it and see what we can do. Is it clear, class? Can we go on? Who are on the call? Let me see, 7 people. Yeah. So let's create the 4th and final row. So let's do that by copying the 3rd row. So let's create the 4th and the final row. So call it the what? 4th row. So what do we want to be on this 4th row? We want to have a scroll bar. So we want to try bringing in other widgets, other types of widgets. So let's bring in a scroll bar. So how do you bring in a scroll bar? You bring in a scroll bar by simply saying scroll. You can see it as you're typing, you're seeing it there. Scroll bar. So it's actually an object that is made from the class what? Scroll bar. So where do we want it to be in? It has to be in the root window. So that's how you bring it in. Now, apart from that, I also want to bring in other things like a list box that will contain the names of the students. Once you add them, want to be able to see them. So to bring in a list box, I simply say self.list underscore box. As I bring it in, self.list underscore box. And this object is going to be created from the class of what? List box. And I want them to be in the what? Root window. So that is that for those. So I should be able to do some certain things like get it bound, but I'm going to leave that for now. And simply write out what I want in this list box by simply saying self dot list underscore box, as we already have, dot insert. So in bracket, what do I want to insert? I want to test run this by inserting a record. So what is this record gonna be? I'm simply gonna say students will appear here. That's what I want, so that you can see the text scroll list box and see the way it looks. So immediately after saying that, I should be able to add it to the grid. So let me take out this so that I can use this to add it up. So I simply say self dot, you know the way we normally add to the self dot this underscore box dot grid. And inside the grid, which row are we working on? It's gonna be row what? Row 3, Abby, because we are in the 4th row. You know, it's starting from 0, so the 4th row should be 3. So what column are we looking at? This is just the only column. There should be column 0. So we're still gonna do our what? Padding X and padding Y. But before that, I want us to add up another property for this, which is called, this property is called call span or column span. So call it column span. Column span simply means how many columns is it gonna take, because we want this thing to be longer and bigger. So let's take a column span of 4. So once we are done with this, you can also add sticky to this. That we want, which direction do we want it to stick? We want it to stick in the Y direction to what we call west east. So how do we do west east? West east. So once we are done, we can simply Ctrl S to save, and we can rerun this. So if we run this now, you can you see the list boxes? They're very cute. Students will appear here. That's what we added initially. So when we start putting, once you type in a name of a student and click on submit, you see the name will appear down here. So this is a powerful application we are building, powerful GUI, will do great things. So take note of that. So let me move this so that you can see what I wrote here. This is what I wrote here. Stick equal to west east. So that's what we just built now. Okay, so let's continue. So with that, I think we are done with the GUI. The GUI is already okay. So what this application does is that it picks the student's first name and last and second name and puts them there. You understand? But if the person now comes and tells you that I've changed my first name, my first name is now EKENE, you can be able to just click on the person's information here. All of it will come out here. So you change it from Augustine to EKENE, click update, then the new information will be on this text box. So as you're adding people's information and submitting, they will be coming out in this what's it called? In this text leaks box. So this is what we call list box. Scroll bar is gonna come. When we add more things, we are gonna see the scroll bar. Or was it that I didn't add up the scroll bar? Okay, so I did the right thing. So in subsequent class, we are gonna be looking on how to connect this to database. That will be what we'll look at tomorrow morning. So try to connect this to database. But before we do it, please, I want you to make your GUI. I want it to look different from the one my own. I want you to put background color, put different colors, and make it look fine. Okay, before tomorrow morning, let's just do. What's the time now? Can we do it now? Okay, 4:37. Okay. No, let's do it tomorrow morning so that we can, because it's a database. Let's do it when our brain is still very fresh. So tomorrow morning we are gonna connect this to a database. Thank you. God bless you. Any question? Okay, let's pick the questions tomorrow. I have some clients to attend to, so let me quickly rush to them and I'll join you up tomorrow. Thank you. God bless.